If you pay really close attention, you can tell that Hodor actually crawled under the dumpster.
So here it is. Episode 5 is come and gone, and man, it was interesting. So I actually had to rewind it. At the end of the episode, I was like, this episode seemed a little bit too good. There's no way Dave and Dan wrote this. And I rewound it to the very beginning, and it turns out Dave and Dan wrote this. Dave and Dan wrote a good episode of Game of Thrones. I don't think they've done that since season 2. And when I say good, there's more than a grain of salt. There's like a handful of salt. I'm just throwing fucking salt everywhere. It's almost like the opposite problem of last week, where last week the entire episode was pretty good and at the very end it had a shit ending. This week, it's almost like the opposite, where the entire episode was just sort of a little lackluster, and then at the end there was a good ending, but it still wasn't good because it was bullshit. So what am I talking about? Let's start with what is personally my favorite scene in the entirety of A Song of Ice and Fire, the Kingsmoot. It's like they didn't care. It's like they just threw the scene in because the scene had to be there. I thought it was completely rushed, completely bullshit, and I felt like they shouldn't have even had it in at all if they weren't going to do it right. The Kingsmoot in the books is awesome. The Kingsmoot is awesome, right? There's, they're in the skeleton of a dead kraken, and there's people coming up and shouting and, laying their own claim. There's Galbert Faring who say we should go and just run away. There's that other fat dude, and everyone's walking away, and Asha comes up and says, no, we need peace. I will bring stability. This will be awesome. And then Euron shows up. And Euron Greyjoy shows up, and what happens? He brings out this huge horn, blows it. The guy who blows it bursts into flames pretty much. And he says, yeah, this horn will bind a dragon to your service. And yeah, I'm gonna go and get some dragons, and we're gonna kill some shit. And Joey's just like, no, I have some ships, I'm gonna go get the mother of dragons. What? And then he admits, Euron Greyjoy admits to murdering the king. And no one cares. This has to be a problem with Dave and Dan. Over this entire season, they seem to be under the impression that when a king dies, it doesn't matter. That kings just die and that's what happens. So when Stannis gets murdered, Brienne gets no repercussions. When Baelon gets murdered, Euron gets no repercussions. You could just walk up and say, hey, I murdered the king, and people would be like, oh, okay. No one cares. Why doesn't anyone care? So the Kingsmoot was bullshit. We get a really weirdly long scene of that theater. It didn't need to be that long. That was just complete and utter filler. Why is that there? That scene, it was a little funny and but not really funny. Why was it there? That scene really didn't have much purpose. And then we get a little bit of the northern plot, which is interesting, I guess. They're just handing Stannis' plot over to Jon, which I'm not sure if I can be completely mad about. Well, I obviously am furious that Stannis is dead, but it's gonna be cool. We all know where it's going, right? If you paid attention to leaks, Jon is gonna gather an army, he's gonna fight the Boltons. The Boltons are gonna win, and at the very last second, Littlefinger's gonna ride in with the Knights of the Vale and save everyone. That's what's gonna happen. That's what's gonna happen. Spoiler alert if you fucking care about this piece of shit. Then we get a little bit of Dany, and we get a reminder, I don't care what anyone says, Emilia Clarke is a decent actress. That was an emotional scene with Jorah and Dany. That was pretty good. And the scene with Varys and Tyrion is the one I was most impressed with. Because what they did was they referenced something that happened several seasons ago when we found out Varys' backstory. I thought that was very interesting, because I'm like, oh, okay, Varys is mistrustful of the Red Woman because of what he saw, that he hates magic and shit. That's a clever callback. I didn't expect... That's when I first thought Dave and Dan couldn't have written this, because it was actually paying attention to the source material. And then I thought, okay, that's a very subtle motivation for it. But then the Red Witch that just comes up and, reminds us all about Varys' backstory and, makes the subtle reference, very overt and, childlike. Which was, I guess you gotta remind all the stupid idiots who watch the show and can't remember more than 2 episodes behind them. And let me talk about the ending scene. Let me talk about everything with Bran. So, in the inside the episode, Dave and Dan talk about how George Martin told them personally in a one-on-one conversation that Hodor means hold the door, which is hauntingly beautiful, and it's amazing that they executed it as well as they did. I can only imagine how emotional that scene is going to play out in the books. That is, oh my god, I will probably lose it when I read that. But the thing is, we also find out that the White Walkers were created by the Children of the Forest to defend them from the First Men, which I think they really should not have done. So why do I say this? Because the scene where they reveal that, it's just this quick 30-second scene where we find that out, it's said, and then we cut away, and then it's never referenced again. That should be a huge revelation. That should be like an entire episode's culmination in and of itself. And I really think that George should have been allowed to reveal that. I really think Dave and Dan took that opportunity. A mystery, where have the White Walkers come from? Where did they come from? That's been a mystery since 1996, and it's a mystery George Martin has been building up, and then they just reveal it in the show, in a 30-second throwaway scene that no one seems to really care about. And that upsets me. That upsets me. That doesn't get me like nerd angry. That doesn't make me screaming. It just makes me sad. Like, if I were George Martin, I would be sad right now that the show ruined my big reveal. I would be legitimately sad. Now, I can't tell you what George R. R. Martin feels. He probably doesn't care. Like he said, he seems to be very nonchalant about the show taking his story and doing what they want with it. But if I were him, I would just be distraught that my story is being taken and revealed and done with as it's pleased. And I would just not be okay with that. And I, as a viewer, am not okay with that. That upsets me. That being said, they executed it about as well as they could have. That scene with Hodor, hold the door, that will go down as one of the best scenes in the show's history. That was incredible. Now, Summer dying, that's some bullshit. Anytime a direwolf dies, that should be a big fucking deal. And really in this episode, if you blinked, you could have missed that. Summer is dead. That should have been a much bigger deal than it was. So in the end, we have an episode that did some stupid things, that ruined some great things from the book, but at the end had a scene that was just haunting and very well done. And it gets me confused. I'm not sure what to feel. I'm not sure if I should be angry about them ruining things from the book. I'm not sure if I should be angry about them taking a cool scene from the books and, making it boring and mundane. I'm not sure if I should care at all. I'm not sure if I should stop watching the show. I feel like I should stop watching the show because I want to read the books first. But that's not an option. This is an interesting thing. I don't know if anyone has any other examples in mind, but this is the only thing. This is the only series I can think of where the adaptation is being made at the same time as the source material, and it's catching up with the source material. And that's huge. And if I were in charge, I would say the show has to stop until the books can get done. But that's not going to happen for, money reasons, practicality reasons. But if I were in charge, if I had any say, the show would be canceled today. But I'm not in charge. Honestly, I just feel a little dead inside because once the book comes out, what's the point of reading the books if we know everything that's going to happen? Man. But of course I'm going to read the books. I love the books. They're my favorite books of all time. But this is just disheartening. And I really wish, you can't really see any remorse in the writer's eyes. You watch it inside the episode, they just say everything matter-of-factly, oh yeah, the White Walkers are created by the Children of the Forest. Isn't that ironic? And they don't say, hey, book readers, we really debated whether or not we wanted to put this in the show, whether or not we wanted to reveal that or let George reveal that, but in the end, we made the decision what's best for our show, and that's the decision. They just know. They don't have any, remorse. They don't have any hesitation about just ruining things. And that's what scares me. They have no deference for the source material. They only care about their product. And that just makes me mad. That just gets to me. So those are my thoughts. Let me know what you thought in the comment section below, and I'll see you soon, guys. Keep moving forward.